This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Well, 2 good wins and then a pretty average performance. It's a bit of a pattern so far this season, Mike. Was not pretty on Sunday afternoon.
Average performance, Dom. That's a wrap.
Yeah, it was. There was not a lot of positives to take out of it. The first quarter I thought was pretty good. There was a fair bit to like there. From then on, may as well have switched off.
Oh, and I tell you, the second half I just about did because I have to put my hand up and say I didn't watch much of the last quarter and a half. I was too busy filing my copy and not really taking much interest in putting my head up. Every time I put my head up, it seemed like there was a goal going through from Adelaide. So it was just really disappointing is a soft word, I think, from the previous 2 weeks and the previous 2 months really in general when Brisbane had seemed to make so many strides forward and we'd seen so much excitement and so many reasons for optimism. And I mean, you don't erase all that good work with one performance, but it definitely takes a bit of sheen off those previous couple of months, I think. Well,
it just means that if we were to get over the top of Collingwood, for example, this Saturday night, suddenly people say, it was a good effort, but remember the Adelaide one the week before? I mean, it kind of leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, I think, regardless of what else you've achieved. To get on by that magnitude, that was the issue. It wasn't the manner, it was the magnitude of the loss. Yeah,
and Tom Rockliff had a press conference on Tuesday, and we're speaking to him a bit later in the show, of course, but he was saying that the last 20 minutes was so disappointing when you cough up 8 or 9 goals. Instead of just walking away with a 50-point loss where you can say, we didn't play very well, but we battled it out. You walk away with a 105-point loss. I mean, there's no excuse for that. So just that last 20 minutes is so crucial in the way you walk away from the match. And they've got to put it behind them now and look straight to Collingwood, and I'm sure that's what's happened by the time Tuesday rolls around. They've reviewed the match and they've put it behind them, and Wednesday it's a fresh start. But just undone a little bit of good work, I think. Not all of it by any stretch, but just a little bit of the good work's been taken away.
Yeah, it just seems a little less exciting now, but it could all come back with a good win over Collingwood on Saturday, which, honestly, after seeing them against West Coast on the weekend, I wouldn't put it past us. If we can play our best footy, there is actually a genuine chance we could get over the top of Collingwood, I think.
Well, Collingwood's fallen in a hole themselves, haven't they? I think it's 6 of 8 or 5 of 7 or something that they've lost, and they haven't just lost either. The way the Magpies have fallen in a hole, their pressure has gone downhill, that which was so prevalent in the first half of the season. But a couple of performances lately, the West Coast one, which in fairness I didn't see much of, but have heard a lot of commentary post-match, and the Essendon match a couple of weeks prior, which I did see a lot of, their pressure was poor. So they're flying back from Perth. They've got a short break just like Brisbane, so there's no excuses for either team there. But I tend to agree with you. I think there's certainly an opportunity there.
Yeah, well, what will be interesting to see will be whether or not we can rebound to form that quickly. Now, I know Rockliff spoke on the club's website post-game, and he mentioned that the aim would be, can we turn this around as quickly as it's turned around on us? And it's interesting because form seems a lot easier to lose than gain, and you seem to be able to lose it a lot quicker than you can gain it. So it's going to need to be quite some turnaround to go from a 105-point loss at home to a win over Collingwood. But from what we've seen this year, you'd have to think it's possible at least.
Yeah, it's possible. And we know, we've said on the show a lot of times, we're not geniuses in saying it, that with young teams you get big fluctuations in form, and that's what we've seen. Maybe not to the extent that we saw on Sunday, but you do get those turnarounds, and you can, I think, such a young group. I think there was 10 players on the weekend that were either first or second year players, which is a amazing amount of your team. It's half your team, isn't it, that are first and second year players. So while the bad thing is they can tend to fall off the cliff pretty quickly like they did at the weekend, the good thing is they tend to put that stuff behind them pretty quickly. They're not scarred by that loss, and they'll just move on quite quickly. So I think Rocky's right. Well, he's not right. He was just sort of proposing whether they can turn around quickly, and I certainly think they can. They'll put Sunday behind them, and if their energy levels are okay, and that's something we don't know at this time of year for such a young group, I think they can bounce back. And just playing at the MCG, geez, that's got to lift you, doesn't it? You don't get many chances down there, so surely that'll lift them.
Particularly a prime time Saturday night slot at the MCG. It's a bit of a showcase game for the club, really, and I hope they do embrace that when they get down there. Just a few quick highlights we will mention from the game. Jack Crisp was brilliant in the first quarter, particularly. He got another good goal later on as well. But I think the knock on Chris for a while has been that he's a pretty good ball winner and pretty good at finding space, but his polish and his finishing ability hasn't quite been there, which was great to see him, I guess, turn that around and kick two very classy goals on the run. It was a fair run on both occasions, but he still had the composure to be able to finish, which is great for him.
Yeah, terrific. And I think he's one of the guys, along with Stefan Martin, who we mention every single week, but I think he's almost saved his career, I think, in the last few weeks. Like, I certainly had a massive question mark over him just a month ago or 3 weeks ago about what his future was with the club, but I think you're right. He's shown a bit in the last 3 weeks that he's played, and that polish that you mentioned is exactly right, and that has been one of the knocks on him. And those goals on the run, I mean, those sort of players are hard to find. So he's really, I think he's certainly saved his spot in Brisbane. I think saving his career is a bit of a big call for someone who's only 21 or 22 years old, but
he's earned a new contract.
Yeah, I would think so. Absolutely, I think there's a few players in the queue ahead of him that'll be chopped before Jack Crisp. So full credit to him, because him and Steph Martin, I thought they were both cooked sort of recently, but they've both revived and turned things around remarkably.
Hopefully they can continue it, both of them, this weekend. The other major positive out of the game, which has been spoken about a fair bit in the media already, was Tom Rockliff, who we are chatting to on the Fancast pretty shortly. But to be able to have such a great game when your team is basically non-existent on the field, that to me shows a true leader, the kind of player who doesn't go missing when his team's up against it and instead stands up.
He's almost the opposite, isn't he, Rocky? He almost does better when the team is going its worse. I remember a couple of games off the top of my head, the Fremantle one, which was in the wet. Brisbane kicked 3 goals, 7 maybe, got smacked by 80 or 90 points. I think Rocky had mid-40s in that game. Earlier in the season against Gold Coast, that game got away in the last quarter and a half. I think he had mid-30s and 2 or 3 goals. Like, he never drops his standard, which is something that a lot of other players can't say. And I mean, Tom's been in the system for 6 years now, but just his ability, the difference between his best and worst is almost non-existent. He produces almost the same level every single week. You know exactly what you're going to get out of Tom Rockliff every week, and which is an amazing trait, particularly when you're at such a high level that he's at.
So do you reckon he's a lock for the All-Australian team now? Because he'd have to be pretty close.
Yeah, I don't think he's a lock, but I've given it a bit more thought in the past couple of days, and I think the thing that certainly weighs in his favour, well, obviously his numbers speak for themselves. He's a bit more creative and probably getting a little bit more ball in the forward half, so a little bit more damaging with his disposals this year. But also you got to look at the competition he's up against. That midfield's so hotly contested, but this year Jobe Watson's been injured for about half the year. Dane Swan's had minimal impact compared to normal. So a couple of those sort of regular locks, I suppose, for the All-Australian are probably not going to make it this year. So it might open up the way for a new player or two to sneak in. And he's certainly a lock for the top 40, for the 40-man squad, whether he gets into the final team. Going to be touch and go. He's still got to beat guys like, well, not beat them, but he'd be joining guys like Nat Fyfe and Scott Pendlebury, and I still think Gary Ablett will make it despite missing 6 or 8 games. So there's a lot of class in there, but Tommy he's right on the edge, I reckon.
Yeah, look, I think it would be a bit of an outrage if he didn't make the 40 squad.
Yeah, that would be an outrage.
Yeah. we will flare up about that if that happens, but I think he's pretty safe of that happening. And I think more and more over the past few weeks, he's just edging his way into the top side too, which is exciting, because it's been a few years since we've had a Lion, even in the top 40, let alone in the actual All-Australian squad. So, richly deserved for a player like him, who has really battled away for so many years now and is now elevating himself into the elite category of the competition.
It's a bit about perception too, isn't it, All-Australian? Because it's voted on, and all of a sudden, Tommy Rockliff, I've noticed in the Melbourne media, he's starting to get a little bit more traction down there, which sounds ridiculous to think that that's what sways, but that's the perception is reality. Like, all of a sudden his name's getting mentioned, people start taking a bit more notice of him. It baffles me because every single game is live on television, pay television these days. So it's not like you can't watch Brisbane play, but people tend to forget them. So it's he's getting mentioned a lot more, and I think that certainly adds to his cause. So I'm going to be fascinated to see whether he makes the final 22 or not, because he's got great claims for it.
Absolutely. The other quick positive I want to touch on, I didn't get the best game of his career, short career as it is, but Daniel McStay did have one standout moment, another great pack mark that just gets people excited. I mean, some were saying was his form against Melbourne up forward, was it a bit of a fluke, or is that actually the type of player he is? And then, he goes and pulls off a mark like that in the first quarter. It's It's pretty exciting to see him
Yeah.
going through. I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the weekend that him and a few others, patience is definitely going to be needed. It's going to be a bit of a journey to get where they need to go, but the talent's there with McStay.
Oh, definitely. And we said it last week because you've mentioned it a few weeks before. You want to see their best, just glimpses of it, and we've seen that. And I think he didn't get a lot of good supply after that for the rest of the afternoon. But Dan McStay actually sort of mentioned after he came off the field that once he took that contested mark in the first quarter, Adelaide never let him have a free run at it. After that, he got checked and bumped and I guess blocked. His run got blocked. So and that's what he's got to learn as well. Teams are going to figure that out quickly. Hey, this kid can leap. Don't let him have a free run because he'll jump over our heads and mark it. So he's going to learn with that. But those couple of highlights, isn't it? One last week and one this week. So exciting, and can't wait to watch him develop.
He's got a highlights reel to go with some of the best already, which is pretty exciting for a kid so early in his career. We will get to chatting a bit more about the Collingwood game later in the show, but coming up next, we will be joined by Tom Rockliff.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results, and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads, and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions' social media activity. Lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
Joining us on the Fancast today is Vice Captain Tom Rockliff. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, Rocky, it was a pretty embarrassing and shocking performance on Sunday. How do you rebound from something like that?
Yeah, it was obviously a tough day at the office, and we felt like we played pretty poor footy all day, and really, in particular, the last 15 minutes when we let 8 goals through, we felt like we probably should have grinded out a 30, 40, 50-point loss instead of a 100-point loss, but unfortunately, we didn't show the fight and the character that we've shown in the past few weeks, so we're looking to rectify that this week, and we've gone over the vision and things to work on. So we'll look to do things a little bit different against Collingwood this weekend, and we think we've picked a team that can go down there and play a good brand of footy and, most importantly, be more defensive.
When you review a match like that, Rocky, how difficult is it and how confronting is it when, I guess, things are highlighted from coach to player or player to player?
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of the boys probably wouldn't enjoy seeing the vision, but you've got to front up. We're men. You've got to deal with it. Obviously, you can't be best on ground every week. You can't win by 100 points every week. So it's probably more about the lessons you take out of it than sort of trying to move on straight away. So it's good for our group where we're at. Obviously, you don't want results like that ever. But in saying that, hopefully we can learn a few lessons from it and move on pretty quick.
You mentioned after the game that the challenge for the club now will be to try and rediscover form just as quickly as you lost it. How do you think you go about doing that?
Oh, I'd be a genius if I could give you the answer. 'Cause I'd be working for every club and just telling them how to do it. But, obviously, it's about probably getting on the track, doing the right things during the week, making sure you recover well, you eat well, you do all the little things that maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we got a little bit complacent or something like that. I know certainly I didn't think we did and didn't feel like that going in the game, but you've got to make sure you tick all the boxes. You have a really good main training session, go down to Melbourne, give ourselves a really good chance to be on the front foot and put ourselves in the game against Collingwood on Saturday night.
And a special game for you, obviously, Tom. You're playing your 100th. We know a bit about your journey. You got overlooked in the national draft and you've sort of chipped away and now you've got to 100 games. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's sort of gone really quick. It feels like just yesterday Craig Lambert was picking me up from the airport and driving me into the footy club, and it has gone quick, but it has been a good journey. And Mum and Dad have really enjoyed it and been there the whole time, and they've witnessed the highs and lows. So it'll be good to have them there on Saturday night. Obviously, it's back to where it all began. First game for me was on a Saturday night in Blackie's 250th down against Collingwood at the MCG. So it has been a really good ride, and I think the most important thing now for me, obviously, early on you want to cement a spot in the team, but now it's all about team success, and hopefully we can have that in the near future, and we're building towards that. Obviously, injuries and so on haven't been ideal for us this year, but we've learned a new game plan, and you don't want to make excuses, so you've got to move on, and hopefully we can have a really good game on Saturday night.
In your 99 games at the club so far, you've gone from being a preseason draft pick to pretty much the club's best player now. How does it feel to you now being, I guess, so highly regarded at the club, and how much does the club mean to you in return?
Yeah, obviously the footy club means everything to me. They gave me an opportunity when most wouldn't, and I feel like I'm forever indebted to them. And obviously, you want to be a one club player, and that's my complete goal and aim, is to be a one club player. And hopefully, I can enjoy some success up here in a team forum. And obviously, I'm not sure. I still don't probably think I'm our best player. We've got numerous, probably 10 or 11 guys in front of me, and there's a few of them sitting on the sideline. So I think we do have exciting times ahead, and I think the near future holds that. I think Left has been really good for the footy club. The environment that he's created for the playing group as a whole has been second to none. I think everyone at the footy club is really enjoying their time at the moment, and when you're having bad losses like a year that we've had, if you can still enjoy your time at the footy club, it's going to make those special times and those winning times so much better.
Can you just elaborate on that for us a bit, Tom, and particularly from your leadership perspective? We know a few of the young fellas left last year, and you've got a whole new batch in this year. And from what I've heard, you've taken on a lot of extra responsibility off the field, trying to embrace those guys and be a bit more of a leader sort of on the field, off the field, and everywhere you can. Can you just tell us, elaborate on that a bit for us?
Yeah, well, I suppose you've got to look at yourself when guys go away and leave the footy club, and yeah, it's easy to say that whatever and blame them guys, but you've got to look at the way you've done things in the past and things that you can do better, and they all left for different reasons, but at the end of the day, if they didn't want to be at the footy club, then that's their decision, and it's probably better that they're not at the footy club now, and we've got guys that want to be here, so it's about supporting the boys that are here. Obviously, almost every single one of them are interstate boys, and it's important that they feel like this is their home now and settle in as quickly as possible. And I think we've got that from the group. I think we've seen most of the boys recommit. I think we lost 5 last year, but we've had 22 or 23 re-signs since then. And probably more of an on-field side of things for me has probably been really taking control of the midfield group. And in the past, I probably haven't been cemented as a midfielder. I've been sort of drifted forward and different things at different stages. But with our injuries this year and the blokes that have gone down, and then obviously Beamer retiring as well, it's left a big hole and age and experience through our midfield. So I've sort of probably shouldered that load a fair bit, and obviously Pierce Hanley stood up really well as well this year, and he's been a great support for me. And it's about just sort of taking control of the midfield group, making sure that we check in with the younger boys and make sure they're going well and they're still developing their game and so on. And they know if they ever need us, and I'm only a phone call away and stuff like that. So it's probably been a really good year for me to mature and grow up.
You did just mention the retirement of Brent Maloney, which obviously happened earlier in the week. Now, a lot of people from the outside don't get to see just how big an influence he's had, but whenever you chat to some of the younger midfielders, you constantly hear them rave about him. Can you just let us give us some kind of an indication of just how big an influence Brent has left during his time at the club? Yeah,
it's left a massive hole now. Obviously, with him leaving, he grabs all the younger boys, takes them out for dinner. Him and a few other boys would take 2 or 3 of the younger boys, like first-year players, out for dinner every week. And his knowledge of the game and the leader that he is, it was actually amazing and surprising to me. And he's had an amazing impact on me individually. I was in the system for 4 or 5 years, and he's shown me the ways to lead and do different things better, and also been there as a good support for me. And he's obviously left the footy club after only being here for 2 years, and I'm not sure what the future holds for him. Obviously, love to keep him here if he decides to go in to coaching or whatever he does. But Beamer will be one of my good mates for the rest of my life, and he's a great fella. He shows the boys the way to be professional, the way to prepare for the game, but then also go out there and do it. And unfortunately, this year his Achilles gave up on him, and it was right from the start of the pre-season. And I think it took him a while to get his head around it, and obviously would have loved to have him out there every week. And unfortunately, the Achilles in the end got the better of him, and it wasn't a really pretty injury or anything like that for him.
Great endorsement there, Rocky. Can you, obviously not only Brent's left now, but Blackie sort of finished up 12 months ago. Dan Rich has been out all season. Jack Redden's been out the last 6 weeks. How, you sort of mentioned the extra responsibility you've had to take on. How has that impacted on the way you've played, because you've had such a great season yourself with sort of minimal of that senior support around you?
I think it's been a really challenging and a good challenge, one that I've really enjoyed. I think I perform probably my best when my back's up against the wall, when it feels like someone's got you in the corner, and that's sort of what it's felt like this year. We've had boys go down time after time, and we lost Louis, then we lost Westy, then we lost Richie, then we lost Reddo, then Blackie obviously retired. Beamer's been injured most of the year, and it's just a good opportunity for other boys to step up. But as probably the senior mid in there at the moment, it was really important that I took control of things and showed the younger boys the way it's done, the way to train, the way to get things done, but also then the way to review the game, the way to study, the way to prepare for the next game, and make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if people have got different ideas going into games, then it's be very hard for the team to play in a team system. And I'm still learning the game plan myself, and I've still got plenty to work on to improve my game. And I think once we get boys back in the obviously seasons now, because we've only got a couple of weeks to go, and most of those boys are out for the year, but I think we'll see the group really grow really quickly and play some really good footy. So to be honest, we're probably playing our B-grade midfield at the moment, just through pure injuries and so on. So I think we can be a force that will be pretty scary next year and beyond.
It's not that surprising considering the team man you are, that you have mentioned constantly about team success here and very little about yourself. But are you able to reflect on a great season that you've had that now has you right in the frame for All-Australian selection? And obviously you are ineligible, but you'd think we'll have you relatively high up in the Brownlow too. Do you have time, or are you able to take time to appreciate things like that in a great season you've had?
No, not really. I think when you get reports from Lepper and he tells you it's going to be hard to keep me in this week in my 100th game, he said it's going to be hard to drop me in your 99th game. It keeps you pretty level. So, but it has been individually probably a really good season for me, and obviously had a few indiscretions, and sat down with Lepper and he said it's really important. Just it's a learning year for me, and probably at that age now where you've got to mature, and obviously I didn't go out there and intentionally to get suspended or anything like that, but it's just learning what you can and can't get away with. Obviously coming from country footy, you do different stuff off the footy, but obviously AFL footy, there's cameras everywhere. So it's been more about that, and Lepper's been pretty good to me on that front. And he's really given me freedom to play, and he's given me roles at times to go and do, and I think I've been able to achieve them on most occasions. Obviously, a couple of times I've been beaten, but it has been an interesting year, and I think obviously I've attracted more attention from opposition, being tagged a couple of times, and it is challenging at times, but it's been good for me to work through that, and I think at times I've really broken them, and as I said, like it's sort of always hard to talk about yourself, and I don't really enjoy doing it, to be honest with you. Yeah, it probably has been ever since the back half of last year to now. It's probably the best footy I've ever played in my life, and you'd expect that at sort of this sort of age. So my back half of last year and then this season sort of carried on, which has been nice.
Just one more on your playing, Rocky. Just the tagging front there. You mentioned you have been picked up a couple of times this year, which is something you probably haven't had to deal with because Simon Black's been there, or Daniel Rich has been there, or maybe even a Pierce Hanley. How much better a footballer is that going to make you next year when Rich returns and a few of these other guys and Pierce continues to develop? And how much better can that make you think, having dealt with those tags?
I think it's more probably a team approach about it. I think obviously there's a lot of stoppers in the game, and they're not going to be able to try and stop everyone in our team. And when we get Reddo and Richie and Pierce and Zorks and myself up and running, it's going to be interesting to see who they go after. And it's just about bringing that player or whoever's getting tagged, putting attention into the opposition and making sure it's pretty hostile. I think we did that really well last week when Pierce got 2 weeks ago, when Pierce got sat on by Geordie McKenzie. We made sure we got the footy into Pierce's hands early, and makes it, it's probably more just thinking outside yourself, and it definitely will make me a better player and appreciate it a lot more.
Now, you aren't eligible for the Brownlow this year, but you did end up 5th last year and weren't at the night. Just before we let you go, I just want to know, are you going down to the Brownlow this year?
No, you don't get invited if you get suspended, so I won't be there this year. And so I'm not sure what I'll be doing at that time, but hopefully we can get a few boys that poll really well on the night.
Well, hopefully. Thank you very much for joining us today, Tom, and all the best for your 100th game on the weekend. We all can't wait to see how you and the boys go.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
This weekend, the reserves play the Gold Coast Reserves at Metricon at 10:20am on Saturday. Then the seniors Saturday night at the MCG. It's a bit of a showcase game, 7:40pm against Collingwood. You know, we did just chat to Tom Rockliff. It is his 100th game. There's a few things in this game for the Lions, and I think it could be a bit of a chance.
Bit of a chance. I'm not backing the Lions this week, Dom. My little reverse psychology thing didn't work last week. Picked Adelaide and they got home, and I'll have to go with Collingwood this week. They got so much to play for, Collingwood. There's no more chances after this. They have to win. They're at home. I think Brisbane should show a bit of pluck, and that the loss last week I think will sting them a little bit. They should show a bit of pluck, but Collingwood just a little bit too good for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Collingwood will win by around about 5 or 6 goals in the end, and I think that'd be a pretty good margin considering it is a home game for them. If we can keep them to that, you'd be pretty happy with that, I think. In saying that, the opportunity is there if they're good enough to take it. The question will be how quickly can we rebound from such a disappointing effort against Adelaide. And of course, I know that there'll be a few other clubs in the 8 who will be, or near the 8 who will be cheering on the Lions.
Yeah,
on
the
weekend.
Lions will have a lot of supporters, I think, on Saturday night, won't they?
Richmond, West Coast fans, or Adelaide fans, still even Essendon fans. There's a few there who'd love
Gold Coast
fans. There's a few there who'd love to see the Lions get over the top of Collingwood on Saturday night. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, it will. We'd just like to, I guess, that first quarter against Adelaide, we saw that quick hands, a lot of quick ball movement, run and carry, very exciting. So whether Collingwood will allow it to happen, we're not quite sure, but it'd be great for Brisbane to get a chance to play at the MCG and great experience for the players. Hopefully they'll make a good account of themselves. But yeah, I just think Collingwood by a few goals. And
just one quick last mention to Brent Maloney, who retired, called it a day on his career earlier in the week. Now, he hasn't played a lot of footy this year, but Maloney had an outstanding season for us last year and I think worked his way into the hearts of many there. I mean, many people obviously think back to that Geelong game and think of Ash McGrath, but Ash McGrath would not have been in a position to kick that winning goal if it wasn't for Brent Maloney's amazing last quarter. That was just an absolute showcase of football there. So, you know, it's a bit sad to see him go. He got one good season up here, though, and I think it was such a good season that many people are really happy that he had his time at the club.
Yeah, I'm certainly sad to see him go, and not just from a playing front. I thought he was he's a terrific bloke, Brent Maloney, and I guess the people on the outside don't get to see a lot of him. He doesn't do a heck of a lot of media, and particularly this year when he's hardly been able to, hardly been in the senior team. But he's a terrific bloke, Brent Maloney. A lot of the young guys gravitate towards him. A lot of the young guys and those middle tier guys mention him very, very highly as to when asked someone who's had a big influence on him. He's very good friends with James Aish. He just resonates through the whole club, Beamer. A terrific character, and just a real shame that this year the Achilles got the better of him. He's tried to nurse it through the whole season, and obviously when you're a stoppage player and you're in the middle of the ground, if you've got an Achilles problem, it's just not going to work. So real shame to see him finish up, and he's just trying to figure out, I guess, what the next stage of his life is. I think one day he'd certainly make a good coach just because of those people skills he's got and the way sort of people listen and gravitate towards him. So whatever he does, it's certainly best of luck in the future. A really ripping bloke, and sad to see him finish up.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great memories from his time at the club. And just a quick side note, this does mean that heading into next season, jumper numbers 3, 16 and 20 are all available, which is some pretty prestigious numbers at the Lions.
There is. There might be a few guys clambering for them.
Absolutely. That is all we got time for on the Fancast this week. We'll be back next week to review the Collingwood match and look forward to the last Lions home match for the year.